At 21, Pax Thien, the Vietnamese-born boy once hailed as a global symbol of compassion and hope, now draws concern rather than applause. Images of him in recent months, stumbling, bandaged, and visibly avoiding cameras, leave a different kind of impression. Once the orphan child embraced by one of Hollywood's brightest stars, Angelina Jolie, Pax was the face of a real-life fairy tale. He embodied the idea that love could rewrite destiny. But when the stage lights dimmed, that fairy tale gave way to a quieter, more complex story. One marked by emotional scars, silence, and uncertain paths. Born in 2003 in Ho Chi Minh City as Pham Quang Sang, Pax was abandoned by his birth mother shortly after birth and spent his early years at Tam Bin Orphanage. Then, in 2007, at the height of her fame, Angelina Jolie adopted the 3-year-old boy. The image of Jolie cradling the timid Vietnamese child, surrounded by a sea of cameras, became iconic, a moment that resonated with millions around the world. To many, it wasn't just the celebrity adopting a child. It was Hollywood showing its heart. It was a message. Even the most forgotten child could be given a second chance at life. Jolie renamed him Pax Thien, meaning peace from heaven, a soft prayer cast into his future. He grew up in million-dollar homes, attended elite schools, traveled the world with a famous mother and a family of siblings from all corners of the globe. On the surface, it was everything a child from an orphanage could never dare to imagine. Yet amid all the privilege, Pax chose silence. He shied away from the limelight, avoided press events, and maintained no public social media presence. While his siblings like Shiloh and Zahara appeared comfortable in front of cameras, Pax never seemed at ease under the flash. Angelina Jolie once shared that Pax was deeply passionate about photography and visual arts. He assisted in post-production work on some of her films and even held his own photo exhibition. But those moments came and went quietly, barely noticed by the wider world. After graduating high school in 2021, instead of attending an Ivy League college like Harvard or NYU, the kind of path many would expect from a child of celebrity, Pax chose independence. He pursued art on his own terms, stepping out of his mother's shadow and away from the expectations that came with her name. It was a bold choice, but one that also came with risk and vulnerability. Part of that silence, perhaps, began with a fracture in the family itself. The highly publicized divorce of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt in 2016. Pax was only 12. U.S. media reported an intense altercation aboard a private plane between Pitt and Maddox, the eldest son. Pax was reportedly present during the incident. From that point on, the relationship between Pax and his adoptive father grew cold. Some sources claim Pax and Maddox cut off all communication with Pitt. In 2020, around Father's Day, Pax was rumored to have posted a biting message calling Pitt a world-class hole. Though he never spoke publicly, his actions reflected pain and disconnection. The trauma of being abandoned at birth, only to watch a second family fracture in front of him, runs deep. And by 2024, the effects began surfacing more clearly. In July of that year, Pax was involved in a serious e-bike accident near Los Feliz, Los Angeles, requiring hospitalization and time in intensive care. When he appeared again weeks later, his hand was in a cast, his face bore fresh scars, and his eyes looked distant, burdened. Soon after, reports surfaced that Pax had crashed his Tesla into a truck outside Red Studios in Hollywood. A separate video showed him riding a bike with no hands, dancing recklessly through LA traffic, ignoring basic safety laws. In early 2025, he was filmed slamming into the side of a parked car, this time wearing a helmet, but still riding dangerously, seemingly careless. And then came another low point. In early May 2025, paparazzi captured Pax stumbling out of a Los Angeles strip club, appearing intoxicated and visibly exhausted. His friends had to help him into a vehicle. His face, blurred with fatigue, was far from the hopeful expression the world first saw in 2007. Once again, Pax made headlines, not for his art or achievements, but as a figure of concern. And people began asking, what happened to Pax Thien? Why, after being raised with love and abundance, does he seem so lost? And it is precisely within that contrast, the dazzling spotlight of America on one side, and the shadows that once consumed a woman in Vietnam on the other, that we begin to see the deeper layers of a journey shaped by fate. If Pham Thu Dung, Pax Thien's biological Vietnamese mother, once believed she had permanently lost the right to be a mother, then Angelina Jolie's appearance in Vietnam, with a heart large enough to embrace a child born into abandonment, became the quiet way destiny offered redemption. Not for Dung, perhaps, but for the child she once left behind. What's remarkable is that even though they haven't seen each other since those brief 2 days at Tu Du Maternity Hospital in Ho Chi Minh City, the lives of Pax and his biological mother seem to have continued in parallel, separated by oceans, yet connected in spirit. As Dung began her slow and painful journey to recovery, inching away from addiction and toward self-forgiveness, Pax was thousands of miles away, slowly learning a new language, new culture, and learning to trust new arms that held him. Two people, one reclaiming her life from drugs, the other reclaiming his place in the world from abandonment, both reborn in their own way. Women who fall into drug addiction often lose sight of where it begins, and never know where it might end. They plunge into it like slipping into a dreamless haze, where reason becomes a luxury, and the future fades into something abstract. But in the case of Pham Thu Dung, the woman who gave nearly half her life to the numbing highs of heroin, fate had something unexpected waiting for her, a strange form of redemption. Before she could even awaken from her long nightmare, the baby boy she once abandoned was chosen by destiny to carry a story that would touch the world. Pax Thien Jolie, a name now known far beyond Vietnam. Pham Thu Dung was born into a well-off family in Saigon. As a child, she was bright, obedient, and full of promise. But then came the whirlwind of the 1990s. The rise of nightlife, blaring music, flashing lights, and a growing youth culture that idolized rebellion. Drawn in by curiosity and youthful recklessness, Dung quickly found herself spiraling. At just over 20, she was offered heroin by friends. What started as "just try it once" became "I can't live without it." And so, the girl with a future became a woman consumed by addiction. After drifting from one street corner to another with a group of friends, some of whom would later die from overdose, be jailed, or contract HIV, Dung ended up in Binh Duong, working as a garment factory worker, desperate for stability. There, she met a man who was already married. Though they had no legal union, they lived together like husband and wife. In a rare moment of clarity, Dung decided to quit drugs. And she did, at least for a while. But when she became pregnant and the man abandoned her, she relapsed. She was alone again, scared, pregnant, and using. She later recalled sneaking heroin even with a swollen belly, just to avoid the agony of withdrawal. One time, after the high faded, she smashed her head against a wall, not from pain, but from a deep, crushing loneliness. Even in the final moments before giving birth, Dung asked a friend to buy her one last hit to numb the torment of withdrawal. On the night of November 29, 2003, a baby boy was born at Tu Du Maternity Hospital in Ho Chi Minh City. 2 days later, he became an orphan. His mother vanished without a trace. Before leaving, Dung gave him a name, Pham Quang Sang, inspired by a character in a Vietnamese story she once loved as a child. It was, perhaps, the last glimmer of humanity in a woman lost to addiction, a fragile gift for the life she could no longer raise. Sang was taken to the Tam Binh Child Protection Center in Thu Duc District. Dung, meanwhile, returned to the cycle of addiction, surviving only because her older sister occasionally pulled her back from the brink. By then, her family was emotionally and financially drained after years of trying to save their troubled daughter. And then fate intervened. On November 23, 2006, Angelina Jolie, one of the world's most powerful actresses, quietly arrived in Vietnam, searching for a child to adopt. 3 months later, on March 15, 2007, she visited the Tam Binh orphanage. As Jolie entered the room, little Sang, nearly 4 years old at the time, saw a stranger and immediately cried, retreating to a corner of the room. Jolie didn't rush. She knelt down, spoke softly, extended her hand. With the help of her eldest son Maddox, who himself had once been adopted, Jolie eventually coaxed a radiant smile from the boy. In that brief moment, it was as if Sang's tiny heart opened to a hand reaching out from another world. The next morning at 10 a.m., Jolie appeared at the Department of Justice in Ho Chi Minh City. Deputy Chairman Nguyen Thanh Thai officially signed the adoption papers. A new name was given, Pax Thien Jolie. Pax means peace. Thien means heaven. It was a name wrapped in hope. On March 21, 2007, Jolie left Hanoi with 3 adopted children, Maddox, Zahara, and now Pax, bound for the United States. 6 months later, U.S. law officially recognized Jolie as the legal mother of the Vietnamese boy. At that time, Pham Thu Dung, Pax's biological mother, had no idea, She had moved to Nha Trang, determined to start over. For the first time since she began using, she committed to quitting, for good. She had no knowledge of what was unfolding in her son's life, yet somewhere deep in her soul, she sensed that he deserved to live, even if it wasn't with her. It wasn't until early 2010, when Dung returned to Saigon for her mother's funeral, that she finally learned the full story. Her relatives told her everything. She was stunned. Silent for a long time. People expected anger, maybe grief. After all, her son was now legally the child of another woman. But instead, Dung said softly, "At first, I felt a little heartache. But then I thought, I hadn't taken care of him. Who was I to complain? If Jolie hadn't adopted him, I don't know what would have happened to him. I failed him as a mother. So to see him have this kind of future, that's more than I could ever ask for." In a world where opportunities are not evenly given, Pax Thien's journey is a beautiful contradiction. A boy abandoned at birth, born to a mother lost in addiction, given the chance to grow up surrounded by love, dignity, and boundless opportunity, he became part of one of Hollywood's most multicultural families, embraced, educated, and perhaps healed. As for Pham Thu Dung, though she has never again held the child she gave life to, she managed to turn her own story around just in time. In her late awakening, what she gained was not the forgiveness of the world, but a rare and quiet peace. The peace of a woman who lost everything, but was still able to see her son rise into a better life than she ever could have offered him.